sure I got it here. Huntsville, Alabama repeater's been keying up. I hate to take it off just before the net starts, but please tend to it if you can. Looks like it stopped. Hi everybody, this is Dick, WB2JPQ. I'll be one of your net controllers here tonight for the East Coast Reflector Tech Net number 638 on this September, what is it, number 9. Already a weekend to September. We have changed our format a little bit, as many of you know from the past 3 weeks. We are no longer doing call districts. We're doing text check-ins and radio check-ins, just like any rest of our net. The only thing that is a little different tonight, when we get to general check-ins after the questions, Roger, Q4QMN will take 10 text check-ins, and Scott, we'll get to BLT, will take 10 radio check-ins, and we'll alternate 10, 10, 10 on down through the list to make it fair for everyone, whether you're radio or text check-in. So bear with us. It's a little more work for VKY on the log, but she's been handling it great the last 2 weeks, so she ought to have that down pat tonight. And you can text in early. I mentioned at 10 minutes to the hour, 716-317-9050. You can text in any time now to get on the list, or if you're on a computer, some of our people overseas, where it's a toll call or whatever, we have an email address, text at ecr.radio, text at ecr.radio. Just put your call sign in either the body or the subject field of the text, or the email rather, and it will get to us. Only your call sign. Nothing else other than your call sign will work. Our lineup is the same here tonight. We're going to see if any of our team members have anything that they would like to report. We'll check for silent keys. We have no silent keys that popped up out of our database, which is good tonight. And I don't see Joe here tonight, so I don't think we're going to have Celebrity of the Week. Joe hasn't popped in here yet. Then we're going to go to stations with amateur radio related questions. So if you got a question, this is certainly the time and the place to ask it. After that, we'll get to the general check-ins. Like I said, 10 text, 10 radio, so forth and so on. Quite a number have already texted in, so don't hesitate to text in if you want. You can get on the list. Well, quick announcements. 9/11 is Thursday, and following the morning brew, as we have done quite a number of years, we remember 9/11. We remember the tragedy that happened, and we have an audio program that's put together that will play at 9, 12, and 3 in the afternoon, and I don't know, sometime at night. I'm not sure of the time at night. So at 9 o'clock, as soon as the brew is over, we'll play it again at 12, 3 in the afternoon, and so forth. And I guess it's 7-8 minutes long. It's a lot shorter than the previous years. There was some errors in the previous years, and Vicky straightened it out and made it more better, as they say. We stumbled around for a question tonight. We thought we'd try to make it a little educational. Our question tonight is, do you check your Coax for continuity? Check your Coax for continuity. It's so important. A while back, a couple of years ago, I got asked by a new ham not too far from me to come over and help him out. He couldn't hear anything. Obviously, he couldn't transmit the super high bizwire. He had a shorted piece of Coax, 100-foot piece of Coax, brand new from the manufacturer, wherever he bought it. I don't know where it came from. That's immaterial. But, if he would have tested that before he ran it, I believe it was run in conduit and the whole 9 yards, he would have been a much happier camper. Because as it would have, you got a 50-50 chance when the connectors are on and you have a short. You cut off one end if it's the wrong end. Now you've got both ends cut off. So you know the story there. You replace both of them. So it's super important. Super important. With your ohm meter, everybody probably has an ohm meter, whether they're $5.99 to $1,000. They all do the same thing. They all check for continuity. They all check for shorts. Easiest way is use the diode tester on there where you get the beep. When you put the two test leads together for our newer hams, when you put your test leads together, you hear a beep. So obviously when you go from the center pin of the coax to the shield, you should not hear a beep. It should be open. So Charles, I don't know if you're here tonight. I don't want to put you on the spot here, but if you want to say a little something, try to make this a little educational on testing coax. I don't know if you want to say any more than that, Charles, but that's going to be our question tonight. If you're there already, KC6UFM.
Yeah, good evening, Dick. KC6UFM, Charles, in beautiful downtown Guatai. Absolutely. I mean, it's something that is so easy to check, and like you, Dick, I've kind of lost count of how many brand new out-of-the-box pieces of coax that I have opened up and put the meter on, and there has been a short. And, you know, it's so easy to check. And like you say, you don't need anything expensive. Go to Walmart, buy one of their, $5 or $10 multimeters, and that's all the test equipment you need. And, it's so easy to do. Certainly not worth not doing and running the risk of, frying your several $1,000 radio over a $20 piece of coax and a $10 meter. Back over to you, Dick, KC6UFM.
It's good. So that's our question tonight. Do you check your coax for continuity? And tried to make it simple for our new hams that might not be aware of that. Certainly, it's a good starting question. So that'll be our general question. At this time, do any of our system team members have anything that they would like to report this evening? Don't hear anything. Like I said, we have no silent keys. I'll get the silent keys in a minute. We have none from our database. We had 51 new users last week. 34 of them had email addresses. I don't see Joe tonight. I don't think we're going to have Celebrity of the Week, like I said. And Kevin, BE3BZ, texted me a half an hour ago and said he has nothing for the swap and shop. Well, we'll get started. Does anyone have a silent key that they would like to have remembered here this evening? Preferably from the East Coast Reflector family, but we're open to anyone. It's good. It's one area that we do not want any boxes checked. How about new users to this net? If you have never checked into this net before, you might have checked into the morning brew or been on the system. You might be in our database. Hopefully you are, but perhaps you've never checked into this net. So this is the opportunity to get in, get ahead of everybody else. It's the only opportunity we'll ever get. So do we have any new users that have never checked into this net that would like to call in and say hello and answer our question? Once again, this is Dick, WB2JPQ. Call signs twice and slowly. Whiskey Alpha 1, Uniform Lima Whiskey. Whiskey Alpha 1, Uniform Lima Whiskey. Kilo Mike 7, Charlie Bravo India. Kilo Mike 7, Charlie Bravo India. Whiskey Alpha 2, Mike Golf. Whiskey Alpha 2, Mike Golf. KR4 GMI, KR4 GMI.
Kilo Echo 2, Golf Hotel Zulu. Kilo Echo 2, Golf Hotel Zulu.
All right, let me hold it up there. Good evening to Steve from Brooklyn, New York, KE2GHZ. We got Don, looks like you're new to the system, from Gainesville, Florida, KR4GMI. And just before Don, there was a KG something. The KG station only, please, call sign twice. Well, let me do it this way. Let me read the rest of the list, and we'll find out who we didn't acknowledge. Like I said, I acknowledged Steve and Don. How about WA2MG, Dan from Michigan. We got Corey that's new to the system, KU1U. We got Mike from Portland that called in, KM7CBI. Well, unfortunately, Mike, you come up red on our screen, so it indicates that you have been in here before, so I'm going to ask you to please call in when we do general check-ins, and else you have a question. You want to start with Frederick from Coral Springs, Florida, WA1ULW. Good evening, Frederick, and welcome to the East Coast Reflector Tech Net. And our question tonight for everybody is, do you check your coax for continuity, before you, whether it be a jumper or going out to an antenna? Good evening.
Good evening, and good evening to everybody on the net. Yes, this is my first time signing in here. I've been listening to the East Coast Reflector for a couple of weeks and just kind of getting the lay of the land, but thought we check in tonight to the TechNet. Yes, absolutely. I do check my continuity. As a matter of fact, I usually make my own coax cables as far as length and all the different connectors that I need. So always take out the continuity checker and check it. And you can get one real cheap at Harbor Freight. I know I got one for free once, and I'm still using it. So hope to hear you guys again and check in more often. WA1ULW, back to net.
Frederick, your first time check-in here on the net. I see you have been on the system before, you just haven't been on the tech net. Charlotte, North Carolina, nice place to be, KU1U, good evening.
This is Kilo Uniform 1 Uniform, Corey in Savannah, Maine. First time checking in, and I'll confess, I do not check for continuity on my home station, but the only time I do check for continuity is if I'm putting up a repeater, so I should probably make that a habit. Thanks for allowing me to check in. KU1U, back to net control.
Well, it only takes one time, you know. It's something I learned, I actually learned it long before I had anything to check continuity with, I'll tell you that. But I was taught that at a very, very young age. And every hundreds and literally hundreds of connectors that I put on, both in the professional world and amateur radio world, literally probably thousands, everyone has always been tested. It's so simple. Thanks for being here. Let's go on to Wyoming, Michigan. I didn't know Michigan had a Wyoming. Dan, good evening to you, WA2MG.
Hello, hi everybody. Wyoming, little suburb of Grand Rapids, Michigan. I have been a ham about 3 years. I have never checked my coax for continuity. However, that would probably explain the several coax cables I've had that haven't worked well. so it is now officially on the list of something to do. Thanks for having the net.
Thanks, Dan. That's what we're trying to do here. It's so simple to do, to try to educate, especially the new hams. What looks like seasoned hams are going to fall in the same category. Gainesville, Florida. Hi, Don. KR4GMI. KR4GMI, if we have that call right from Gainesville, Florida. Good evening, Don. Are you still with me? All right, let's go to Brooklyn, New York. How are you, Steve? KE2GHZ, gigahertz. Good evening.
Good evening all. Yeah, I don't really check Coax because I don't have any Coax. So right now I'm just like on a handy talking stuff. So when I get ready to do the upgrade and move into high frequency and stuff, I will definitely be checking my Coax.
Thank you, Steve. Once again, I'm going to encourage people to use our text line 716-317-9050. Get on the list for regular check-ins after the TechNet question and answers. What else do we have? Users that are new to this net, have never checked into this net before. Your call sign twice, please.
KW4U, King William 4, Uniform, John in East Tucson.
Tucson, Arizona. Hi, John. KW4U, good evening to you.
Good evening. I was born and raised in New York City. I had two area call signs, WN2IXM, back from March of 69 to 71. Let it expire, and then as my graduate studies, all my legal studies came to a close, I got KA2GSW and zipped up to extra and got this one because I knew I was going to live in 4-land. But now I'm living in 7-land, and you don't have to change it, and I'm glad for that because I like it. Okay, I really don't have anything except to acknowledge I'm a new check-in. Just learned about you guys, so funny how that goes sometimes. KW4, you back to net.
Hey, John, I have to ask you a question tonight. Do you check your coax cables for continuity before you put them up or use them?
Like the last guy, I don't have any I don't have any outside stuff right now. This is just on a file cabinet with a mag mount with its own coax pre-installed. But I will once I get my HF station set up, which I'm hoping to have occur this fall. KW4U.
John, thanks for joining us. And Steve was from Brooklyn. I'm at the other end of the state, not to be confused. I'm south of Buffalo. And this is Dick, WB2JPQ at 18 past the hour. What else do we have? New users to this net. New users to this net. If you've never checked in, call signs twice. We got probably over 400 connections here tonight. Let's go to stations with amateur radio related questions. You have a question tonight? Amateur radio related? Call signs twice. I know Charles was not with us last week, and there were a couple of antenna questions. I imagine they're going to come back tonight. So stations with an amateur radio related question. Same for you. Call sign twice. 4 Juliet Kilo. KK4 JJK.
E6 CWI. Ruben in Fallbrook. Good evening, Dick.
Ruben, good evening to you. And John from Buffalo, KK4JJK. Got to get used to that new call. John, good evening to you. Why don't you answer our question and we'll take yours. Yeah, thanks, Dick. WB2JPQ, KK4JJK. No, and I guess like I said, you know that I'm new as of May, and when you said the question, I had no idea what you were talking about. So that's, I guess that's my bad. Bad on me that I don't even know what continuity or to check continuity if that's even a thing. So I just got my HF rig put up. I got the brand new Coax, and I was so excited. I just hooked it all up, and it worked. So I'm guessing my continuity is okay. So yeah, back to you. About 7:30 or so, Vicki posted on our Facebook page, East Coast Reflector Facebook page, step by step. It's actually generated by EI, but or AI. It's 100% accurate. It actually goes in to checking, as I recall, the center conductor. If you got 100 feet of cable wound up, check center conductor to center conductor for continuity. I've never ever seen the braid or the center conductor open in a roll of coax, but I guess it does happen, but I have never seen it. So yep, it's super important to go from the center conductor to the shield and make sure you do not have a short. It's super. That's what this step's going to be all about tonight. Try to make it a little educational for the new people and maybe the old. Thanks, John. Thanks for your question. Oh, wait a minute. No, I didn't get a question from you. We're stations with questions. I did not get a question from you, John. Okay, I just wanted to come back to you after my answer. So my question for tonight, I hope Charles is there. With my new, I got an FT710, so I was waiting on the antenna to arrive, so I put up my antenna. It's end-fed half wave, thanks to Charles' recommendation, 80 to 10 meters, and I got it hooked up in an inverted D. So it runs about 120 something feet, the long wire, and then the transformer is there, the 49 to 1, and then on the other side of it, there is about a 12 to 13 foot length of counterpoise, which they say just can hang straight down or it can run collinear. I let it hang straight down, and everything's working. But I don't see a place where, I guess I don't know how, and I tried searching it up, but I can't find an answer. How to ground this antenna, and how important is it to ground it, and how do I ground it? Back to you. Thank you for your question, John, and I'll turn it over to Charles.
Thank you, Dick, and good evening, everyone. Good evening, John. Yeah, it's very important to ground it. There should be on the transformer box, there should be a terminal that is marked ground or counterpoise or something to that effect. Check the box itself and the manual that came with it, because that counterpoise is it's going to work for you, especially on the higher frequency bands. But if you get a good ground in there, you're going to get a little bit better performance, and also it is going to provide a safety margin in case of any static discharges or nearby lightning strikes, that kind of thing. So you definitely should ground it. If there is not a separate ground terminal there, you can connect to one of the mounting screws for the SO239 Coax connector and utilize that. But there should be a grounding connector on that box someplace. You may have to look around a little bit and get a little creative, but look for something that is labeled ground or counterpoise, something of that nature. And worst comes to worst, pull out that multimeter again and put it to the absolute lowest range, and check and see if you can determine which terminal on the box has a extremely low, preferably 0 ohms, to the SO239 shell. So that way you'll get that in there. But the big thing is for the safety factor in case you get a static discharge. But it will also improve your performance, John. Back over to you, Dick, KC6 UFM.
John, does that answer your question?
I know that so this is a handmade product, so I bought it off QRZ, there's handmade gear on there. So this guy makes antennas, and, it's a solid piece of equipment. There's just 2 terminals at the termination at the box. So the one terminal goes 122-foot wire, and the other terminal is the 13-foot counterpoise. So I guess my question is, do I run an extra wire from that 13-foot end down into a ground?
Basically yes, John. If it's that, just connect to that counterpoise connection and take that down to ground. And quite honestly, if you do that, you can probably eliminate the counterpoise wire, because the ground wire is going to be taking its place and serving that function. So, it won't hurt to leave it on there, but it's also not going to do you much good to leave it on there. Back over to you, Dick, KC6UFM.
Let me make sure, John, are you okay, John? Your question answered?
Yes, gentlemen, thank you very much. Have a good night, 73.
John, look forward to hearing you on the open mic night. I don't know what the schedule is, but I'm sure one of these Wednesday nights we'll hear you again. Fallbrook, California, a guy by the name of Ruben, KD6CWI. What can we do for you tonight, Ruben? And do you check your coaxes for continuity before you put them up?
Dick. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Charles. Pleasure to be here, first of all, as always. And this is KD6CWI Ruben in Fallbrook, North County, San Diego. It's a great question. Whoever came up with that question, I put my hat to that person, because when you get a brand new coax, you get excited, and then you put it in, and then the only thing you check is the SWR. And that's a good primary rule wherein you check your coax, especially if you're purchasing it from Amazon. It's not like an ABR, DX Engineering, or Messi Pelosi coax, or Times Microwave and all the high-end stuff kind of coax. And usually new hams just automatically goes to Amazon. But I'm guilty, especially with the kind of equipment that I have. Can I reset? Especially with the kind of equipment that I have, a Rig Expert AA1400 and a 1500 Zoom, so I got 2 of them. So there's no excuses of not checking the coax prior to use, and that's why I said heads off on the person who did the question today. My question for today is about WSJTX, which is FT8. If when I came back to Hawaii, the radio that I was using, I didn't use it, which is 857 Delta, and I decided to just use the FTDX10, and that's where the problem arose. So I troubleshoot it for a couple of weeks, even called the ASU. So it's not the radio, and then it's not the settings of the radio, it's not the settings of WSJTX. And the question is, if those two of those factors are okay, where do you check from there? Let's say if you change the sound settings on your computer and all that other stuff, and initially it's on the receive that wasn't working, and then the transmit wasn't working, and that would be the question. I'll bring it back to Dick.
So you're not receiving, is that, I guess that's the question. Anybody help Ruben out? Anybody, I'm not an FT8 guy. Anybody help Ruben out? All of our FT8 people. Anybody out there can help Ruben out? Or, yeah, Ruben out.
I'll take a stab at it. N0MSS.
Good evening, Ross. N0MSS. If you'd like to answer our question, we'll get you for a check-in. Anybody that has checked in, we can count that as a check-in. You're more than willing to check in again if you'd like, but it's up to you, Ross. Good evening.
Good evening, Dick, and everybody on the net. I guess I usually only check it if I notice some kind of a problem. If it's something's not working or a little high SWR or real high SWR, I will do that. And sometimes it pays off. Like you said, could be shorted. One little wire strand of the ground touching the center conductor on an end, and it definitely shorts. Question for Ruben. Is this I didn't necessarily hear the whole question. Is this the first time hooking up your 710? And did you install drivers first before you plugged it in?
Dick, do I have your permission to respond?
There you go, Ruben. Yes. Thank you for asking. Go right ahead.
Sir, no, it's not the first time. All the radios that I have, prior to me using it, they're all set up for the digital platform. The FT991, I had that same issue on the FT991, and then the FTDX10, and then I went to the 857 Delta. There's two of them. So there's 4 radios that works on it, but I went back to the FTDX10, it didn't work. So it's not the radio, it's not the settings, it's not the comfort, it's not the sound, the sound setting on the computer. So it was something else, and in 5 weeks, it took us 5 weeks, a lot of hours a day. I think the last one took probably 5 hours to fix it, but it took 5 weeks to fix it. So I'll bring it back to you, sir.
All right, so it sounds like you have it fixed then, or is this a different radio? I think you were talking about the DX10 there, took to fix it. And you're working with a 710 now, is that correct?
Okay, I'm going to answer my own question. I hate to do this, Dick. The problem was the computer. The computer was overloaded, and it's a Microsoft Surface 4. It was overloaded with Stop on the Hobby. All digital platforms and everything else is on that computer, so the memory couldn't handle it. So initially it had that problem, and it took us 4 weeks to figure out it was the computer, and then it took us 5 hours to reconfigure the computer to factory specs and make it work. So that's the fix. That's the reason I stated the question, because it's going to be a nightmare for someone when the WSJTX doesn't work. Usually it's the Windows update that's what happens, but this one took a long time because it was the computer itself. The memory was overloaded. I'll bring it back to Dick before I bring it back to you, sir.
Hey, for that's the comment.
David, go ahead.
I wanted to mention that I have an FCDX10 and a 7300 and several other radios as well, which have the integrated USB interface which plugs into the computer. I have found the most common issue with all of these radios, which have the all-in-one connection, basically just one USB connection, and that gets you the cat control, and it also gets you the audio, is that when you load them, you install the drivers on the PC, the drivers are fine, everything looks good, plug the radio in, you can key the radio and whatnot, but you don't get any audio. And I've seen this on several radios now. You don't get any audio, and you're sitting there trying to figure out why. No receive audio, no transmit audio, nothing, just no audio. I reset. And the issue is simple. By default, Windows seems to select a sampling rate on the built-in sound card on the radio of 44.1 kilohertz, 44,100. It'll select that as the default. That does not work. You need to set the sampling rate to 48 kilohertz, 48,000. And that's a setting in the driver. It's like a little button to select or drop-down box, one or the other. Select 48,000, and then the audio goes to working perfectly. But I've seen that a number of times. That's the most common fault that I've seen with these radios with the drivers, is that, it actually, you can keep PTT and everything, but you don't see any audio in the waterfall. You don't see any transmit audio. Just go check the sampling rate on the radio sound card from the Windows drivers, and you'll find that it's probably set to 44,100 rather than 48,000. Click that, away you go. K4FXC.
Well, thank you, David. Thank you, Ross, for jumping in there. And Ruben, I guess it really wasn't a question. Maybe next time come in and just, give your findings rather than posing it as a question. Thanks, everybody. Let's move along here. 37 past the hour. This is Dick, WB2JPQ, looking for stations with amateur radio-related questions.
W4HKL.
Hey, Steve, W4HKL, go ahead with your question, please.
Okay, the question I'd like to pose is, what would be the, say, accepted minimum size of ground braid? Like, say, the width of it, say it's flat, like in inches, like half inch, quarter inch, inch. It could be for your QTH or even mobile. So that's my question. Back to net control, W4HKL.
That over to either David or Charles, but the wider the better. Charles is my vote. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Dick. Steve, you didn't say what you're using the braid for, but as Dick says, regardless what you're using it for, the widest that you can afford and fit into the space allowed is the best, the better option. But any braid of an inch or more is going to be much, much, much better than anything other than, say, a number 4 gauge or a larger wire. It's going to be a whole lot more flexible than that too. But as you probably already know, that braid is some expensive stuff. But If you're using it for RF grounding purposes, wider is better. If you're using it for power grounding, say in a mobile installation, I would stay with 1 inch, if not a little bit bigger. But if you're doing some shielding, again on a mobile, and I don't know how many cars still have metal hoods and metal trunk lids, but if you're bonding the trunk lid or the hood to the automobile's ground, you can get by with something smaller there, but you're just bleeding off static at that point. But if you're doing power grounding, I would stick with 1 inch, and for RF grounding, 1 inch would absolutely be the minimum that I would consider. Back over to you, Dick, KC6UFM.
And K4FXC comment.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I was going to mention on top of using braid, in a lot of scenarios you do need braid because it's got to be flexible, and therefore something flexible is a requirement. But just be aware that braid's quality degrades over time unless it's really fancy stuff that has a special coating on it, because it will corrode. So unless it's in a dry environment, like in your shack or something like that, even in a dry environment, it's going to probably develop corrosion over time, and its quality will degrade. If it's a scenario where you don't need something flexible, then just get just a piece of copper bar or even a copper pipe, and use that. A scenario where rigid is fine, and it will probably give you longer performance, better performance overall at a cheaper price. So I usually use either copper plates, flat plates, or copper pipe where applicable. But braid, just be aware, braid, when you install it a few years later, if it's in a corrosive environment, it's not going to probably be the same quality material as it was when it was first installed. K4FXC.
A very good point, David. Thank you. Charles and Steve, did I answer your question?
Absolutely. I'd like to thank Charles and David for jumping in there and answered it exactly what I needed to know. Anyway, thanks a lot, guys. Enjoying the net. W4HKL, back to net control.
Thank you, Steve. All right, let's move on here tonight. Stations with an amateur radio related question. Call sign twice. This is Dick, WB2JPQ.
It's Illinois, November 8, Oscar Alpha Yankee.
That looks like James, due to the Hamilton, Ohio. N8OAL. Good evening, James. If you'd like to answer our question, we'll take one from you. Do you check your coax cable for continuity before you use them?
Okay, that's November 8, Oscar Alpha Yankee, in Huntsville, Alabama, and normally I do not use VOM to check the coax, but I always do check it with a SWR meter. So for that, my question, good one for Charles, I guess. Most of Diamond mobile antennas say that they're not recommended for magnet mounts. I'm planning on making a portable antenna out of sections of pipe to use for emergency situations. I'm wondering if just random length of pipe is suitable ground for one of the diamond movable antennas.
KC6UFM.
Looks like a ton of packet loss on you. Sorry about that. We corrected the call sign Dave in Huntsville, N8OAY. Our apologies. I guess you got the question, Charles. Good ears. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dick. Yeah, I think I got the gist of it there. There seems to be, in my opinion, Dave, that a lot of the manufacturers are kind of shying away from mag mounts, not recommending their antennas for mag mounts as much as they used to, and I think it has to do with liability. If you're driving down the road at 70, 80 miles an hour and that antenna comes loose from the roof of your car, there's in the current litigious environment of the place now, you can probably easily sue the antenna manufacturer. But that seems like the movement today is going to more and more composites and non-ferrous alloys to build the cars out of. But you're saying for emergency communications, I'm going to assume that you're talking a stationary situation, not necessarily a mobile situation. But, for stationary, yeah, it's going to be fine. And if you're concerned about it flopping around and things like that, they do make mag mounts that have 3 or even 4 or 5 great big magnets on them. They're designed mostly for HF antennas. And, if your roof of your vehicle is actually steel, and you're concerned about it coming loose or something like that, get one of those. It's going to take you and 3 other people to pull it off the roof when you're done using it, but it's not going to go anywhere in the meantime. But like I say, I think that a lot of the manufacturers, their legal departments are telling them that they need to stop recommending these antennas for mag mount installations, just to keep the product liability stuff down. But on the other hand, though, consider that a mag mount is probably about the worst mount you can have, because there is no direct connection between the vehicle ground and the actual antenna. It's all a capacitive connection, and that can vary depending upon paint thickness and how much dirt you've got on the roof and everything else. So keep in mind that that there may be issues with that. But for your situation, for an emergency, especially if it's stationary, it's going to work fine for you. Just get you a big old pizza pan or something like that, and stick it on there and set it over on the picnic table, and you'll be good to go. Back over to you, Dick, KC6UFM.
Well, where'd that come from? Thanks, Charles. Did that help you on answer your question, Dave?
Correctly, but yes, it did. What I'm doing is I'm making in true MacGyver fashion, I'm making power out of parts strands for old floor lamps, just to raise an antenna up higher in the air for emergency communications situations, like SET, or in case we get hit by the big so yes, that did answer my question. Anyway, why back to that. And thank you all.
Dave, thank you for your question, and thank you for answering our question. Incidentally, Ruben asked where our question came from. I think he had asked AI an hour ago, generate me some questions that can be used on an amateur radio tech net, and this was one of them that we picked. So this was an AI-generated question tonight. Who do we have? that would like to ask a question here tonight, amateur radio related question, call signs twice. Last call. Not many questions here tonight for amateur radio related questions. Next question.
N7OKN.
We got to take it off, or you got to settle down there from K3QY. John, at 7OKN, Mesa, Arizona. Good evening.
Good evening, Dick and the net. Thank you for having the net here. And excuse my cough. I wanted to make a quick comment about the Coax continuity, and I think that's really important. There's a lot of antennas, though, that are that you will find DC shorted, but RF just fine. Like mine, I have a Comet antenna that's DC shorted. That wouldn't do much good if you just check it. So you gotta undo the coax at the antenna end in order for me to check mine. So I thought I'd put that comment out there in case anybody was thinking about that. And 7OK, back to you, Dick.
That's a good point, John. I didn't mention that. Yes, I'm talking continuity piece of coax, whether it be rolled up 100 feet long or 3 feet long, not connected to anything, because many antennas, like you said, do have a capacitor or do show a DC short. All right. Who else do we have? Stations with an amateur radio related question.
K4FXC, comment.
Go ahead, David.
Well, I'll go ahead and put this in the question section, since it's kind of related to the question of the evening. Do you test your coax? And the answer is yes, I do. But you don't have to. Interestingly enough, if you buy a piece of coax from a Hamfest, for example, and you measure the shield to center conductor, and you find that it's shorted, well, you don't have to go cutting the ends off anymore. You can just, if you have a nano VNA or any of these tools that many of the little VNAs that are out there these days, almost all of them, will provide a distance to fault test. That's one of the tests that they've got. And you can just plug the piece of coax into the VNA and either terminate the other end or plug both ends into the VNA, depending on what type it is, and then run the distance to fault test, and it'll tell you where the problem is, roughly. Not exactly necessarily, but roughly. So if you've got a short at one end, well, it'll say you got the short at that end. And you flip the coax around the other way, it'll say the short's at the other end. And so when you're assembling your cables, it's good to test it for a short with a multimeter, and I usually do that just as a immediate test. But then I also reset. If it's flexible coax or something like that, I also will do a profile test on the coax, meaning I'll put it on my little VNA and or the big VNA, either one, and actually sweep it and just get a sweep of how the coax performs when it's brand new or before it's installed. So later, if something's going on, I can check the profile against the original profile and see if something has changed. It's also worthwhile to do a loss test on the coax. If you get some new coax, like from a Hamfest or something, to make sure that that it hasn't got more loss or strange parameters, something you aren't expecting, particularly this cheap stuff. It can be a lot more lossy than expected. And you say, well, I don't hear anything, or I'm not getting any signal in the antenna. Well, it could have been that the coax wasn't as specified. Very common problem, particularly with Amazon coax these days. Some of the cheap coax off Amazon, I understand. But anyway, just a few thoughts, K4FXC.
Well, David, I guess you're playing eeny, meeny, miny, mo, which end do I cut off? Yeah, good point. I used to use TDR to the same reason. But, yep, it'll save a lot of grief and save you from cutting the wrong end off. All right, good comments from both John and David. I did say last call, is there anyone else that's got an amateur radio related question or a comment?
We're Alpha Charlie Bravo, KF4ACB.
Oh, there's the voice of Tennessee. Hi, Terry, KF4ACB. How about answering our question, and we'll take one from you.
East Coast Reflector. This is a basic question. I've been here for 30 years, and I know some of the answers, but I was just wondering, what does everyone consider to be the best predictor of a 6-meter opening? Where do you look? How do you gauge it? I understand there's scientific ways of going about it. I understand there's ways to tune, just tune up and down the band every day you get on the radio. But what is considered the best and most likely predictor of a 6-meter opening?
If there was a comment or an answer in there. Terry, I got the 6-meter crystal ball. Don't you have one? Let's see if we can find an answer. There's a station at Newman from North Carolina. Who would like to help Terry out with his question?
KF4FXC.
Go ahead, David.
There are several ways, K4FXC, that I play with to use. One way is using the reporting. Their various reporters they're like FT8 reporter and whatnot, which can automatically log FT8 signals that may be on the various bands and listen for beacons. So you can go to look and see. Well, I see all kinds of stuff going on 6 meters. Maybe there's something worth checking out at my location. The other thing I look at is websdr.org. And you can look for 6-meter and 10 meters is what I lots of times will look for. Various receivers scattered around the world where you can listen. And then, if I tune to a receiver that's down in Atlanta or something like that, and I look at the beacon band and I see CW signals all over the place, and I can say, well, it's probably open. So I go, it's worth my time to go check it out. But that's, anyway, just a couple quick thoughts about how I do it. Of course, you can listen on the air. That's always useful. But in some of these cases, you listen on the air and nobody's transmitting. I mean, even though the band's opening, there's just nobody there. So, that's one of those cases where if you put out a signal, then suddenly someone might answer. But if you go listen for beacons, listening to any of the beacon, there are several websites for beacon monitoring, and they automatically report them. That is probably one of the better indicators if the band is open. K4FXC.
I think I heard a KO4 in there. Vicky got a KO4 something YX. Your audio is very low. Go ahead, sir. The KO4. question from Hillsborough, North Carolina. Go ahead, please. Well, nothing heard. Thanks, David. You didn't like my crystal ball, huh? I don't know if that was any help to you, Terry. Hope it was.
I'll just go down to the bottom of the band and listen for pinkage. And in fact, that is the way I made my last contact on 6 meters about a month and a half ago. I talked to someone in New York, upper New York, from down here in Tennessee. I've not heard any really good openings, though, and beacons have been kind of hard to come by. The web SDR thing was very helpful. I just pulled that up. I was unaware of this, and I can see myself using this quite often. But if anybody's got any other suggestions, I would appreciate it. I enjoy working 6 every now and then when I can, and I have experienced the same thing as the last section there. The band can be open, there's absolutely nobody transmitting, and then people will come to me and say, how come 6 meters is never open? I go, well, it is, but you got to have somebody to talk to. And I remember back in what was it, cycle 24, when we had that double peak, there was quite a few 6 meters open. And in fact, I made quite a few 6 meter FM contacts and several sideband contacts and some pretty good ones too out of the country. But it's just really been few and far between here lately.
VE3BZ comment.
Oh, VE3BZ. Hi, Kevin. Go ahead.
Thanks, Dick. Yeah, I was a little late. I was making my dinner. But anyway, Terry, check out a website called DX Maps, and you can narrow it down by band and mode, and it'll show you on the map of the world, or you can narrow that down too to just North America if you want. It'll show you the activity on whichever band and mode that you choose and where that activity is happening. So dxmaps.com. I use that site all the time. It's pretty good. Back to net, VE3BZ.
Thank you, Kevin. And if that was somebody from the a GM repeater in Detroit trying to get in, you have no audio, or all we're getting is key ups. Thanks, Kevin, and thanks, David. Terry was, I guess that was a help to you?
NEWJL in Detroit.
But none of them have anything to do with ham radio. Maybe I'm on the wrong track here.
Good question, Terry. I think we got one more comment. Looks like that's coming from Jay in Detroit, N8WJL. Good evening, Jay. What's your comment, please?
Talk 6 meters in years. I have that's extra, and they are 6 meters. Well, we have 6 meters is usually open between and around the end of August, September. A little bit in like November, December, but really active. September, the end of August, the beginning of September.
Well, thank you, Jay. Jay, you've got an audio issue going on there. It's not an RF issue, but you're losing audio. You never dropped the GM repeater. but you lost audio, so we got a loose mic cable or something in your audio system there, just an FYI. Thanks, Jay. Thanks, Kevin, and I hope that was help to you, Terry. I'll make one last call for stations with amateur radio-related question. 5 minutes past the second hour here on the East Coast Reflector Tech Net.
KE4NTG, Hollywood, Florida.
I guess that'll be our last question tonight. KE4NTG, answer our question and we'll take one from you.
No, I can't say I ever checked the continuity of any coax. I usually put it up and put an antenna analyzer on it to get it to the sweet spot in 40 meters where I hang out. But no, that's something I gotta start doing when I put up coax. That's a good suggestion. My question is, I've been rattling my head here. I used solid state amplifiers, but I just started buying some tube amplifiers. And I want to know the difference between the 811 tube and the 572B tube. Are they both supposed to be for a specific unit I have? Which one is better and why?
Right. We'll put that out. I couldn't begin to answer that one without looking at the specs, but hopefully somebody will have the answer. He's looking for which is better, the 811 or the 817 Bravos.
Or the 850, now you got me confused with the numbers, hang on. 857Bs.
Okay, it's worth actually. Yeah, I think the question was the 811A tube compared against the 572B tube. Well, I have my first amplifier was a 572. It was a 4-tube 572B amplifier. Also, I've got an 811A amplifier, both of them homebrew. But the answer is it's not real clear cut. Once upon a time, the 572B would have definitely been the better tube because it's a beef tube. It's got higher ratings. It's got higher plate voltage ratings. It's got a higher, much higher plate dissipation. I want to say it's like 160 watts versus the 811A. I think is 65 watts. I don't have a data sheet right in front of me, but it's anyway. The 811A is maybe about a third, or maybe not quite, but close to a third of the plate dissipation, which means the 572B ought to be, in general, since it's a similar the shape tube, meaning the elements are roughly the same size, it ought to be better in almost every way. Reset. Now here comes the problem. The problem is you can't get good 572Bs, or at least that has been the issue over the last several years. I don't know if it has changed recently. I tend to think it probably has not. Where so yes, you can put 572Bs in place of the 811As, and it should work in most amplifiers, or at least with very minor modifications it should work. But the problem is that, and you might have to, some amplifiers you have to change the neutralization when you do that, if it's one that has to be neutralized. But the problem is that you can't get good 572B tubes. My understanding is that most of the tubes out there have very poor filament quality, and they end up with the filaments end up getting poisoned or failing after a year or two. Whereas the old amp I've got is literally 50 years old, and it's got the original 572Bs in it, and it still works. So I don't think you're going to find quality of tubes for the 572B these days that you can get for the 811A, unless something's changed, and somebody might be able to comment to that effect. But I have also got an AL5. I've got two AL572 amplifiers, in fact, and they both work. But I don't really push them very hard, and that neither one have been used in a while. But anyway, just some thoughts. 811A amplifier, if you particularly the H, if I guess you got an Ameritron or something, if you drive it within specs and tune it up carefully with a tuning pulser, 811As, 4 of them in parallel, will run you really well a long time and give you the S meter at the receiving end, they probably won't notice the difference. It'll give you a lot of bang for the buck, figuratively speaking. K4FXC.
Well, there you go. Thank you, David. Sorry, Walter, I guess I didn't hear the 857B. Somewhere I got an 817 in there. I'm not. But thanks for your question. I hope that was a good answer for you, Walter. And I like the tubes, especially in the wintertime when the shack is cold, Walter. You don't have that problem down there in Florida, though. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for your questions tonight. Thanks for all the comments. Like I said earlier, the text line is open, 716-317-9050. And Vicky's got the first 10 text check-ins from previous already queued up here and ready to go as soon as I turn it over to Roger. So, good evening, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow morning on the Morning Brew. And thanks, everybody. Thank you, Vicky, for logging. Over to you, Roger, KO4QMM. Good night, everybody. It's WB to JPQ. Thank you, Dick. That was an interesting question of the evening and some answers there. This is KO4QMM, Roger in Central Florida. I'll be your net control for tonight's evening, Tuesday evening Tech Net question. And it is, do you check your coax for continuity? And that's a pretty good question this evening. I'll take care of the first 10 text check-ins, and then my buddy Scott will take over the call-ins, and we'll move from there. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening, and we'll start at the bottom. KQ4GLY, Chris, Parish, Florida. KK4SED, Les, Claremont, Florida. KK4JJK, John, Buffalo, New York. KM5GH, Mike, Albuquerque, New Mexico. KD3ATQ, Jim, Easton, PA. KC6UFM, Charles, Cathay, California. Buffalo, New York. W2RBC, Randy, West Seneca, KA8BYU, Roy, Blaisdell, New York. KD2JPP, Bob, Gallatin, Tennessee. Good evening, Bob, and do you check your coax for continuity?
Hey, good evening, Roger, and everybody else on the net. Yes, I do. I test it before I hook everything up. I've done that, and I found, like a number of other people I heard that you find fault in it. So once it's up, I've not tested it, but I do test it before I use it. Everybody have a good night.
You too, Bob. Thanks for joining us this evening. Let's move on to Roy, Blaisdell, New York, via text line K8BYU. Good evening, Roy. K8BYU. Roy, you there?
I had to move the cat so I could grab the radio. As far as the question of the night, oh yeah. Always. I do that definitely. Make sure that the coax is in good shape. I found a 50-foot run that I had just purchased the one day that was messed up, so I ended up cutting the crimp iron connectors off both ends and replacing it with soldered on connectors.
Thank you for joining us, Roy. We appreciate it. Have a great evening. Let's move on to Randy, West Seneca, New York. My helper and net control logger buddy on the 20-meter net, W2RBC. Good evening, Randy.
Good evening, Roger, Vicky, and everyone on the Tech Net. I always use a nano VNA to check my coax cables. A VNA is able to detect many more issues than an ohm meter can. For example, shorts, opens, and hidden internal cable or connector damage. The next ECR magazine will have an article that shows how to measure coaxial cable dB losses on the VNA. The article also explains how to measure the insertion loss of fair chokes over frequency. Check it out when the magazine is released. Back to net control, 73 to all, W2, RBC.
Always good information, Randy, thanks. And yeah, I was going to tell Roy that I've been pretty lucky buying my coax from the place that sends you all the stickers. And I usually string it out and put it on my Rig Expert, and then I can move it around, see what my SWR is. But been lucky so far. All right, thanks, Randy. You have a great evening. Let's move on to Joel, WA2UUS, Buffalo, New York. Good evening. Do you check your coax for continuity?
Roger and everyone else on the net. At times I have, but not consistently, I regret to say. But I often, if I do have a problem, I will check continuity. I wish everyone a nice week ahead. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Vicky. Best wishes to everyone.
Thank you, Joel. Have a great evening. Let's move on to Charles, Kitay, California, KC6UFM. Good evening, Charles.
Good evening, Roger, and everyone on the Tech Net. This is Charles, KC6UFM in beautiful downtown Guatay, California. Thank you to Vicky for running the log tonight, and to you and Dick and Scott here coming up soon for herding the cats. And as far as the question is concerned, absolutely. I always check with the VOM. I actually have a little cheap continuity tester that is what I usually use, because that just clips in my pocket like an ink pen, and if I drop it and it gets broken, I don't really care. It was $2 at Walmart, so but I always do check it. But as Dick mentioned earlier, I can't remember who it was that made the comment, that many antennas are a DC short. So, you know, what we're really talking about here is when you build a new piece of coax cable, you know, put on your own connectors, or you buy a new cable, you know, before you put it up, check it for continuity at the very least, because otherwise, you know, just sure as the world, you know, Murphy is alive and well. You're going to get that thing up in the air, threaded through the walls and everything else, and then discover that it's no good. So, you know, it's a very easy check to make, and as David and Randy both pointed out, you know, a VNA can do a whole lot more testing, and I usually, well, it depends on the frequency that I'm talking about. For HF, I rarely do that, but for VHF and definitely UHF and above there, I do put the VNA on and do a sweep and see where the coax sits, brand spanking new. But otherwise, not a whole lot happening here in Guatay today. We did have a very cold night, actually, last night. Got down to 42, and the high today was only 71. So we're supposed to have that for another week or so, and then we're going to be back into the 90s and 100s again. So we'll see what happens with that. But otherwise, Roger, good to hear you again, and everyone on the Tech Net, good questions, and had a good number of new users there. So glad to see everyone here. So stick around, and we'll have a little bit more fun on the ECR. Back over to you, Roger. KC6 UFM.
QSL, Charles. That is a lot of good information there as always. And we've had a lot of nice little rain here today. It's been cloudy. It's 74 right now and still raining. And we enjoy it. Our lake can use it. So thanks for joining. Always a wealth of information. Let's move on to Jim, Easton, PA, KD3ATQ. Good evening, Jim. And do you check your coax for continuity?
Good evening, Roger, Vicky, and the rest of the group. Yes, I do. I worked on the bench for many years ago, and that's just SOP. We checked all cables, especially if we were making them. Back to the net control, KD3ATQ.
Thank you, Jim, for joining us this evening. And let's move on to Mike, Albuquerque, New Mexico, KM5GH. And this is KO42MM, Roger, in Central Florida. How about it, Mike? Do you check your coax for continuity?
Good evening, Roger. I wish I could say every time I go out and play with the antennas, I check it, but the reality is, usually when I put up new antennas, I will check everything, but I need to stay more consistent at it, to be honest. And with that, I had a question for you all on the ECR magazine.
And scroll through there and find it and subscribe. And if I'm not right, Dick will come on here and straighten me out. And I want to thank Vicky for logging KEABKY. Am I right? All right, Dick? Yeah, check it out there, Mike. Thanks for joining us. KK4JJK, John, Buffalo, New York. KK4JJK, John, Buffalo, New York. You there? Alright, let's move on to Les, Claremont, Florida, KK4SED. Les, do you check your coax for continuity?
Yes, when I installed it, and then actually when I'm having problems, I'll go and check it again. But right now it's hanging in there good. So, hey, send a little rain this way. We're dry here in Claremont. KK4 SED back to net.
Right, Les? That's the way I feel. Some people say it's all kinds of raining in Florida, and man, my lake is like 2-3 feet down. We could use some more. Some places hit it and some don't. So thanks for joining us, Les. Appreciate it. Let's move on to the last on the text list. Chris, Parrish, Florida, KQ4GLY. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, Roger, and everyone on the net. Yes, I do check my coax every time before I put it up. Saves a lot of problems. Back to you, KQ4GLY.
Thanks a lot, Chris, for joining us this evening. And I think it was Mike that asked a question about the subscription. But that reminds me, I need to write some things down to make a few announcements here and there. Some people make more announcements than I do. So I need to work on that a little bit. Thanks, everybody. I got 10 texts in there. Next, my buddy Scott, W2BLT, will be coming up and taking calls in. Let's move on to Scott. But BLT, take it over.
Alrighty, thank you, Roger. This is Scott, W2BLT. And let's take some radio check-ins. Anybody anywhere, please come with your call sign, twice and slowly.
KO4CLD, KO4CLD.
Net control, this is Kilo 6 Alpha November. Kilo 6 Alpha November.
Hi Scott, this is Webb, N1WEB, N1WEB. W2KJV, W2KJV.
KR4 DJX, that's KR4 DJX.
N2BH, N2BH.
Alrighty, let's hold it there for a moment. Let me recognize from the bottom up. We had N2BH, we had W2KJV, Tony, N1WEB, Webb, K6AAN, Mike, and KO4CLD, Micah. That KR4 station, could you come back with your call sign phonetically, please?
This is Kilo Romeo 4 Delta Juliet X-ray.
That's better. We got you, Ken. Who else do we have looking to join us via the radio tonight? Please come with your call sign twice.
KD4RHL.
DJM.
KD4RHL.
DJM. In and out.
KK7 OGC, KK7 OGC.
AD8PO, AD8PO. N2ZVN, N2ZVN.
Alrighty, let me hold it up there. Recognizing KD4IH something. Could you come back with that phonetically, please?
Kilowatt Delta 4, Romeo Hotel Lima.
Alrighty, Romeo Hotel Lima. That probably works, but we got you there, Ernest, and we had, see, which way did I start here? Okay, we had KK7OCG 88PO and 2ZVN Allen. That 88PO, is that from Wayland, Michigan?
Yes, it is.
Alrighty, we'll get back to you just shortly here. Let's go to the top of this list. The question of the evening is, do you check your coax for continuity? Good evening, Micah, KO4CLD.
Good evening.
No, I don't, but I need to add it to a checklist, like many have said here. And I would even go so far as, maybe inspecting coax that's been, installed for a while, even just a visual inspection. But yes, I'm going to add that to the checklist. KO4CLD, back to net.
Thanks, Micah, and have a great rest of the evening here. K6AAN, Mike in Valley Springs, California. Good evening.
Well, hi there, Scott, and good evening, everybody on the net. Honestly, no, I don't normally check for continuity. I would on new installs, but everything around here has been up for about 8 to 10 years, so everything is working. I do baseline testing with my antenna analyzer every once in a while, make sure things are where they should be. So haven't had any problems. I do a lot of portable ops. Those are separate cables that I use and have used for a long time. So I will put this one on my checklist though, like the last operator said. Yeah, it really is. Back to you, sir. 73 all. This is K6AAN.
Alrighty, have a good night, Mike. Thanks for joining us. Next up, Webb, N1WEB, down in Collierville, Tennessee. Good evening, Webb.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Vicki. Good evening to the net. You can put me down, yes. I just do a simple connectivity test with a digital multimeter, just looking for ohms, and, if I get the beep, I'm okay. I do that on new cables, but I really have some older cables. It'd be nice to kind of do a more extensive test. I think a nano VNA is the way to go, so I'm going to look into that, maybe put it on my Christmas list. Thanks for running the net. N1WEB.
Thank you, Webb. And I don't know if I'm going to be alive long enough to learn how to use a nano VNA. Have a good evening. W2KJV, Tony in Homosassa, Florida. One of our team members. Good evening, Tony.
Good evening, Scott. You sounded good tonight. Yes, I check my cables when I make them for continuity. Hope everyone has a great night. Back to you, Scott. W2KJV.
Alrighty, thank you, Tony. And like you, I've made a few speaker cables and learned the hard way to check those before you plug them in. Have a good evening. This is W2BLT. Next up, KR4, DJX, Ken down in Leesburg, Florida. Good evening.
Scott and everyone on the net. Well, interestingly enough, I learned last night that I probably should do that, although I checked the cable before I installed it, but when I installed it, when I twisted it on, it shorted the cable, and didn't find that out until I used the radio. This is Ken at KR4DJX, 73 to everyone.
Boy. Alrighty, Ken, thanks for joining us, and I'll put you down as a yes, but even though you checked it, you still had a problem after you tightened it. Have a good evening. Next up, one of my buddies on the Morning Brew, N2BH, Bill in Palmyra. Good evening, Bill.
Hey, good evening, Scott, Roger, Vicky, everybody. Yes, whether it's a new cable or one that I put a new end on, yes, I check for continuity and even check connectors. N2BH.
Alrighty, thank you. Appreciate you joining us. Next up, KD4RHL, Ernest in Bronson, Florida. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Did you in the net? Yes, sir, I do. I no longer have it, but 2 years ago I had a 100-foot tower with two 5-element 6-meter beams phased together, and I had, of course, 75 ohm jumpers up there. And I also had jumpers from there too. I actually had hardline fed to it, 7/8 hardline. So about connectors in line, and it would have been nightmarish had I not made sure I had continuity on 8 different connectors and on a 100-foot of tower. So I most definitely do. Back to you, sir.
Alrighty, thanks for joining us, and you have yourself a great evening. Let's see who we got here. W2CJM Charles and Selden was in and out tonight. Thanks for joining us. KK7OGC, Fred out in Reno, Nevada. Good evening, Fred. And do you check your coax for continuity?
I think I'm going to go with Ross on this answer. Guilty as charged. If I have a problem, then I'll check it. I did check the SWR with a nano VNA on all 4 of my antennas before I plugged them into the radio. But that's a wonderful tip. KK7OGC, back to you.
I had to check my coax before I put it up, because if there was something wrong with that coax, I won't be able to get up there and change it. So I had to make sure before I did it that cable was good. Have a good evening, and appreciate you joining us tonight. Let's go up to Wayland, Michigan. 88 PO. Kayla, looks like you're new to the system. Welcome.
This is 88 PO. Yes, this is my first time on the net. Thank you for running it. I do not check my coax for continuity. I use the SWR, but now I am definitely going to check it for continuity because I am not a fan of getting up on ladders. So with that, back to net. 88 PO.
Alrighty, good point. Thanks for joining us, Kayla. Don't be a stranger. And if you make your email public on QRZ, we'll get you out a welcome letter. You can learn all about the happenings here on the East Coast Reflector. Have a good evening. And last one for me here for this round, N2 ZVN, Allen and Kendall, New York. Good evening.
Good evening, Scott. Everyone on the net tonight. Yes, I definitely check. I make a lot of my own cables and everything, but I'll go a step further and I'll use a mega ohm meter. That'll put 1,000 volts on it, checks for insulation breakdown as well. And, you get any little filings in your connector, it might show good with an ohm meter until you put 1,000 volts on it, and then it'll show up. N2 ZVN, back to net.
All right, thank you, Alan. Have yourself a great evening, and thanks for joining me tonight. Back to you, Roger, for some more text check-ins. This is W2BLT.
And this is KO4QM Roger in Central Florida. And I'm with you, Scott. That nano VNA thing, you got to have a lot of patience for that thing. I barely do the rig expert, just mostly for SWR, and it keeps me out of trouble. All right, looks like Vicky's got another 6 text check-ins lined up for me. And on that note, if you do want to check in text, the number is 716-317-9050. 716-317-9050. You can text check in. All right, from the bottom up, N1NEW, Mike, Pembroke Pines, Florida. N7WZI, Allen, Oregon. KI5PMI, Bill Hobbs, New Mexico. W2AJR, Andy, Cheektowaga, New York. N8OAY, Dave, Huntsville, Alabama. And on top, KD6CWI, Ruben, Fallbrook, California. Good evening, Ruben, and do you check your coax for continuity? KD6CWI. You there? Well, maybe he had to go get a pizza at the door or something. We'll put him on in and out for the moment. Let's move on to Dave, Huntsville, Alabama, N80AY. Good evening, Dave.
Well, I apologize for taking a double hit. I did the text line check-in. I got inspired to ask a question during the Q&A round. I'll take this opportunity to thank whoever came up with the Coax for question tonight. I think it inspired a good round of Q&A and make sense being together at the same time. And let me break for a minute. I've heard several people mention VNA tonight. It'd be kind of nice to have a good VNA for dummies or something like that article. I have what VNA is. If someone could do an article about it in the magazine, maybe a real good here's what it is, what it does, and where to go to find a good education on it. If this is something you want to do. So for that, I can control N80AY.
Alrighty then, Dave. A little bit of scratchiness in and out there, but I think you mentioned Vicky came up with the question of the evening, and you can thank her, K8BKY. And this is KO4QMM. We're going to move on to Andy, New York, W2AJR. Good evening, Andy. And he's Coax for continuity.
Good evening, Roger, everybody on the net. The simple answer to the question is, yes, I do. 73, all have a good week. Back to you.
Well, that was pretty simple there. Thanks for joining us this evening. Let's move on to Bill, Hobbs, New Mexico, KI5PMI. Good evening, Bill.
Roger, everybody on the net. Yes, I do check my Coax connections for continuity. I hope everybody has a good evening. KI5PMI, back to net.
Thanks, Bill, for joining us this evening. Let's move on to Alan, which is in Oregon, N7WZI. Good evening, Alan. Do you check your Coax for continuity?
And then I check for shorts in the middle of the coax by hitting the outside and the inside and see if there's any difference in ohm readings between 0 and 0 and 0. And I do that with electrical lines too, 12-volt electrical lines. I always check continuity on those because I don't want to blow radio up.
Don't blame you, Alan. Thanks for joining us this evening, and some of these radios are pretty high-tech. Let's move on to Mike, Pembroke Pines, Florida, N1NEW. Good evening, Mike. You getting any rain there? And do you check your Coax for continuity?
Oh, we got piles. And yes, I do check it for continuity. Most of the coax that I buy is short length, 100 foot or less, and it comes in plastic bags. So I stab the meter probes through the plastic bag and check the center conductors for continuity. I check the shield for continuity, and then I checked across them for short, and I found one bag that had a shorted coax. And the reason I do it that way is I can return it. I haven't ripped the bag open, and I had no problem returning it. N1NEW, back to net.
Pretty smart there. Thanks for joining us this evening. And last on my text list here is Brian, Monticello, Kentucky, AC4BR. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening, Roger and Dick and everybody on the net. As for me, I don't have anything set up yet that I guess per se needs to be tested. I'm still pretty new at all this, so I do have a Slim Jim antenna I'm planning on erecting it through the UPS, or actually the post office figures out how to put it on a truck. It was supposed to be in yesterday, and it's still sitting in Wisconsin. Anyway, and then work on the HS stuff from there. But that is a good tip to remember, so I shall, and add that to my list of things to do when the time comes. Anyway, I hope everybody has a good evening, and I'll turn it back over to you, Roger. This is AC4BR.
Thanks for joining us, Brian. I'm going to send it over to Scott, W2BLT. Take it, Scott.
Alrighty, thank you, Roger. This is W2BLT, and I think what we're going to do is take some radio check-ins here. If you'd like to check in, please come now with your call sign twice.
W4 PPX, in and out. W4 PPX, in and out.
Whiskey Bravo 5, India Tango Tango. WP5ITT, in and out. Good evening, everybody. Sierra, KA5GSS, in and out.
Bravo Sierra, Victor Alpha 3, Yankee Bravo Sierra.
Kilo Oscar 6, Golf Bravo Zulu, K6 GBZ, in and out.
KE2EHI, Kilo Echo 2, Echo Hotel India, in and out.
Whiskey Delta 4, Oscar X-Ray Tango. Whiskey Delta 4, Oscar X-Ray Tango, in and out.
Victor Alpha 3, Yankee Delta Mike. Victor Alpha 3, Yankee Delta Mike, in and out.
Kilo 7, November Yankee Charlie. Kilo 7, November Yankee Charlie.
November 3, Tango Juliet Kilo, N3 TJK, in and out.
Kilo Oscar 6, Golf Lima Uniform. Kilo Oscar 6, Golf Lima Uniform, in and out.
Kilo 5, Yankee November Uniform, K5 YNU, Forn and Caro.
Alrighty, we're going to hold it right up there for a moment. Let me recognize who we got and who we didn't get. We had W4 PPX down in Hollywood, Florida, was in and out. We had WB5 ITT, Chris and Beaumont was in and out. KA5 GSS, Shane and Beaumont, must have gone bowling with Chris, was in and out. We had VA3 YBS, Bill up in Dunsville, Ontario. I'll get back to you shortly, Bill. We had K6 GBZ, Tom in Cameron Park, California, was in and out. KE2 EHI, Joseph in Westfield, New York, was in and out. We had WD4 OXT, Realty in Winter Springs, Florida, was in and out. We had VA3 YDM, Doug, up in Havelock, Ontario, Canada, was in and out. Then we had KK7 NYC, Doug in Fairview, Oregon, who was not in and out. We had N3 at TJK. That might not be a right call sign. N3 TJK or something like it. You want to give me that call sign again, please?
N3 TJK, November 3 Tango Juliet Kilo, in and out.
All right, we did have it right. You have yourself a great evening. We had KO6 at GLU, Tim up in Hayward, California, was in and out. Then we had K5 YNU, Florin and Conroe. And I'm going to take these three texts that are here because there's only three of them. KO4 FRR, N0 TIS, and KC0 BBF, Steve. All right, let's go to the top of this list and see if there's anybody who wants to talk. How about VA3 YBS, Bill up in Dunnville, Ontario? Good evening, Bill, and do you check your coax for continuity?
Good evening, Bill. No, I haven't done that in the past, but it's something I think I'm going to start to do. So I'm very happy that I tuned into this net tonight. I picked up a good tip, whoever thought of this question. VA3 YBS, back to you.
All right, thanks for joining us, Bill. Appreciate you sticking around here. KK7 NYC, Doug, Fairview, Oregon. Good evening.
I don't have to crawl around on my attic anymore. So yes, I do check it. Everybody have a good evening. KK7 NYC.
You have a good evening as well, and thanks for stopping by tonight. K5 YNU, Florin and Conroe, Texas. Good evening.
Good evening, Scott, Vicky, and everyone on the Tech Net tonight, and also the Zoom room. I buy all my coax that I bought so far. I'm bringing you to this beautiful hobby. I bought them from ABR Industries, and yeah, I tend to test them before, but I never got one, wrong since I started buying them. But I think it's a good practice, especially after you install them. If you have a high antenna, or once you run and then you run into some short there, yeah, it's good. It's a good practice. But good questions for tonight, and thank you for picking me up and doing the net. Back to the net control. This is K5 YNU.
Thanks for joining us, Florin. Always a pleasure. Next up, one of our team members here on East Coast Reflector, KO4FRR, Joe in Sorrento, Florida. Evening, Joe.
Good evening, Scott. This is Joe, KO4FRR. Roger's going to kill me. I've been moving things around. Can't find my charger. And the AC is dead. Sorry about that, Roger. To answer the question, yes, I do. Talk to you later.
All right, Joe. You have yourself a good evening, and thanks for joining us. Next up, N0 TIS, Otis out in Beaumont, Texas. Good evening.
Hello, Scott. Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Vicky, everybody on the net tonight. The short answer is yes. I usually do because many years ago I was always taught, do it right the first time. You don't want to climb the tower. You don't want to rip it out of the wall. None of those things. So yes is the answer. And I heard a lot of people talk about the
the VNAs, the nano VNAs and all, and yeah, they can be kind of cumbersome, trying to, a learning curve, but if you just, the nano VNA especially, or any of them, that you could just learn one thing in it, and sweeping a cable is something that everybody should learn, just to know that you know. So that's it, N0TIS. Y'all have a great evening.
Alrighty, thank you, Otis. Yeah, I got one of those rig experts, and I can do a couple things on it. Things I need to do, I guess. Have a good evening, and thanks for joining us. Last on this list, KC0 BBF, Steve in Lincoln, Nebraska. Good evening.
Hey Scott, good evening to the net and all. No, I do not, because I run everything on low power. Good to see everyone on the Zoom this afternoon. If I can, I'll make it tomorrow because I got doctor's appointments in the afternoon. So, no, I do not. You guys have a week. KC0 BBF, back to that. Thanks, Scott.
Alrighty, thank you, Steve. You have yourself a great evening. I'm going to turn it back over to Roger, let him see if we got anybody else out there tonight.
Yeah, have a little bit of fun. I'm into it. See if we can grab a few more people via radio. This is KO4QMM. Anybody that'd like to join the East Coast Reflector Tech Net, come now with your call sign twice and slow.
K5HOH, Kilowatt 5, Hotel.
Welcome. A little bit of kerchunk in there. Anybody else would like to get in, join us, and answer the question of the evening? Come with your call sign.
Yeah, Victor Alpha 3, Yankee Delta Mike. I've did an in and out, but I guess I will answer the question. I always ring it out with at least a minimum of a voltmeter or an ohm meter, and I have done it with the VNA, and that works very well as well. I never trust a piece of coax, whether I made it or somebody else did. I've had far too many that have little hair shorts between the center conductor and the shell in the past. So, yeah, that's what I do. I check it out.
Well, thanks for coming back, Doug. We appreciate it. Jumping from the in and outs to the ins. Anybody else like to do that? You can do the same. Answer our question of the evening. Let's move on to Harry, Grants, New Mexico, K5HLH. Good evening, Harry. And do you check your coax for continuity?
Good evening. This is K5HLH. My coax with my new Mini 1300 BNA. I don't check continuity with an ohm meter much, but I do keep an eye on my SWRs with a rig expert, a pro rig expert, which the emergency manager has right now at his office. But I like my Mini 1300 BNA. It's getting a little late here in New Mexico, and I think what I'm going to do is drop out our link system after I get done checking into the net. K5HOH, thanks.
Right there. And that's it. Anybody else would like to join us on the East Coast Reflector Tech Net? Come with your call sign twice and slow.
Mike 7, Charlie Bravo India.
Kilo Delta 0.
Sound like a Kilo Delta Zero there. You want to come back again?
KD 0D. Kilo Delta 0 Delta.
Kilo Delta Zero Delta, you say?